Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's Follow Him Favorites. This year, we are telling a single story to go with each week's lesson. John, this week, we're in this huge chunk of 2nd Nephi in the Isaiah chapters, and I have a story I think you'll like. Are you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. You know, in chapter 12, where Isaiah talks about many people flowing to the house of the Lord, right?
Mm-hmm. The mountain of the Lord, yeah.
The mountain of the Lord. Let's go to the temple. I want to tell you a story about a miracle, at least I believe it's a miracle, that happened in the Cuadra, Ghana temple about 10 years ago. There's a man named John Iko Mensah. He's in his 80s. He joined the church, I think 10 years previous to this, so 20 years ago, lived alone in a town called Nakaka. I think that's how you say it. He'd been a member of the church, I think, for 10 or 15 years, and now he's making trips to the temple. He's in a waiting area at the temple. Another man sits down next to him and they strike up a conversation, starting with, "Oh, where are you from?" And the man says, "Oh, I'm from Sekondi." And he said, "Oh, I'm from Sekondi. What part of Sekondi are you from?" And the man said, "Oh, I'm from right where the schools are." And there's this growing sense of recognition to where the man says, "What is your name?" This is the younger man. He says to John Iko Mensah, "What is your name?" And John Iko Mensah, our convert, he said, "Oh, I'm John Iko Mensah." The younger man says to Brother Iko Mensah, "That is my name too."
What?
So what had happened is that years and years and years ago, decades previous to this, John Iko Mensah Sr. had had a falling out with his mother-in-law, who was also like a matriarch of his tribe, his town.
Mm-hmm.
And she had exiled him. And he had to leave behind his wife and infant son. Over the decades, he had moved far away and been working when he ends up joining our church.
Wow.
On the other side of this is his son, John Iko Mensah Jr., who grew up never knowing his father, right? They never talked about him. He ends up getting married to his wife, Deborah. He was at the University of Accra in Ghana, and he picked up a Liahona magazine. So get this, John, when he gets home from school, talking to his wife, Deborah, she says, now, John, this is the same day that he picks up this magazine. She says, "I want to tell you about a church I learned from a friend." She told him the name of the church was the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And John said, "Hey, that's the same church I read about in this magazine, the Liahona." So they were both baptized. And then John, the same day, in 2012, John Iko Mensah Sr., who had joined the church, John Iko Mensah Jr., who had joined the church, found themselves sitting next to each other in the waiting area of the Accra, Ghana temple. Tears came as father and son were reunited. Their joy was compounded by their understanding that they had separately joined the church, and both found their way into the temple that beautiful morning.
It's almost like the temple is to unite families.
It's almost
wow,
as if, John.
That was all
that
orchestrated.
Wonderful?
Yeah.
Isn't that just a wonderful
Amazing.
Story?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Come join us on our full podcast. It's called Follow Him. You can get it wherever you get your podcast. We're with Dr. Sean Hopkin this week, walking through these Isaiah chapters, and we think you'll love what he does. And then come back next week. We'll do another Follow Him Favorites.